You are now listening to a brand new episode of Starfleet Escape Podcast, only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network, also known as the
Starfleet Escape Podcast. Prepare for launch in 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to the Starfleet Escape Podcast on the Four-Eyed Radio Network, where we escape into the Star Trek universe. This is episode number 34 and is being recorded on January 22nd, 2014. Today's episode, Star Trek Axanar. I'm Aaron.
I'm Marty.
And I'm Eric. This episode is brought to you by America Joy Print Shop, official sponsor of the Four-Eyed Radio Network. For high-quality business cards, flyers, banners, cut vinyl, and more, visit americajoy.com.
Today we have a special guest, Alec Peters, who is a Star Trek Archivist and prop collector. And he's the creator of Star Trek Axanar. Hello, Alec.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us here on the Starfleet Escape Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about this project that you have here?
So, Star Trek Axanar it's a Star Trek, we call it an independent Star Trek feature because we try and stay away from the F word,
Phantom.
Because fan film covers a broad swath of independent Star Trek filmmaking by fans, and I tend to put them in three categories, and one is you get together with your friends and you film a home movie in costume, basically. And maybe you've made some sets in your garage, and it's you making Star Trek, and God bless you, but most of us probably don't want to watch it because it's personal. It's your personal endeavor in making Star Trek, and God bless you for that. But it's not ready for prime time, as the case may be.
Right.
And so I call them the Star Trek home movies. And then there's Star Trek fan films. That's Phase 2, which is the granddaddy of them all, which I work with. And it's Farragut and Exeter and Star Trek Continues. And those, I might even throw Hidden Frontier in there, the big green screen one. Those guys, they basically have gone out of their way to make sets. Most of them, they all happen in the TOS universe because the sets are really easy to make in the TOS.
Right.
They're flat walls and square edges, and it's very easy to make there are literally 3 bridges in the United States. 3 full-size Star Trek TOS bridges. Now, why there are 3, basically no one can get along with anyone else. But there are 3, and it's to everyone's credit that they've built these amazing replicas that when you walk on them, you think you're on the Starship Enterprise. And it's if you've ever had a chance to do it, it's really wonderful. And that's Star Trek fan films. And then there's another level which really, up until recently with Star Trek Renegades, hasn't been breached, and that is, and the jury's out, we have to wait and see what they actually produce, but I was on set for 2 weeks. I know all the guys. I think what they've produced so far is really top-notch. And so Star Trek Renegades is looks like it will be, what I call the semi-pros. That's it's the minor leagues. It's one step away from real filmmaking. The difference being, can't make money off of it. None of us can, right? So we do it for the love of it. I can't put Axanar in that category because we haven't filmed anything yet, although we will be filming next month, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. The project, Star Trek Axanar, is the story of Garth of Izar and the 4 years war with the Klingons, culminating in the Battle of Axanar. I have always loved this character. We see so little of him. We obviously, for those of you who do or do not know, Garth of Izar was Kirk's hero. His exploits are required reading at the Academy. He won the major victory at the Battle of Axanar, which somehow preserved or created the Federation. We know from retconning that it was more likely some important event that preserved it, because even though Kirk's language indicates that it created the Federation, we know that happened 80 years earlier than the Battle of Axanar. So I always loved the nobility of this character. Those couple moments, both when they're in the transporter room on Elba 2 and then at the end, you see this noble starship captain. And I always wanted to know more about him. I just was fascinated that why don't we not know anything? Why did they never explore this character? And I wrote my first Garth story literally 20 years ago when I was in law school, and
Wow.
I still have it. It's handwritten on notebook paper. I won't show it to you because it's horrendous. But I had this love for this character, and I took another crack at it in the 90s. And so what happened was I was talking to James Cawley of Star Trek Phase 2 in 2010, and he was trying to convince me why Star Trek fan films were so great. And at that time I was like, I don't know, I'm really not crazy about them.
Mhm.
And but he's an expert on Star Trek costumes. And he worked with Bill Tice for a year or two as his assistant.
Yeah.
And so I would talk to him about whenever we got a Star Trek costume, I would call him and say, hey, can you give me some info? Or when we were restoring the Deep Space Nine Trials and Tribulations TOS bridge chair, and I needed his help on the buttons and such. And so we were talking one day, and I told him, hey, guess what, James? I just got Steve Inhat's costume, Garth of Izar costume from Whom Gods Destroy, because I'm a big Star Trek prop and costume collector. And he said, oh, that's so cool. And we talked about it, and we talked about how all the things I just mentioned. Garth, God, he never got his due, you know. And James says to me, well, you know, this next month we're filming an episode of Phase 2 called Origins, which is about Kirk at the Academy. And he says, and that's about the time of Garth of Izar. I said, yeah, that, you know. He said we should write him into the script. And I said, you absolutely should. That'd be really cool. And James then says, and you need to come play him. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's flattering of you. I said, well, thank you. Okay, I'll do that. I'd love to do that. And so I did that, and the clip is not widely available. It's available. I think we have it available on our website or our YouTube feed. Okay. And it's a great little. I've got like 2 lines, and basically, Garth and this admiral are watching Kirk blow up the Kobayashi Maru. It's a simulator. And the admiral thinks the kid's just the biggest, you know, he's a washout. And Garth is like, oh, I like this kid.
Nice.
And so it tells you a lot. There's a lot of subtext going on there. And then last summer, or a year and a half ago now, they were doing this vignette to introduce the new Enterprise on Phase 2 and the new actor, Brian Gross, who took James Cawley's place. And James said, Alec, why don't you come and play Garth again? Why don't we fit him in? You know, this takes place after the 3rd year, you know, say 3rd, 4th year of TOS. You know, Garth's back by now, and we had talked about this because I've written 2 vignettes that bookend Axanar that talk about it's the Enterprise going to pick up Garth from Elba 2 and bring him back to Starfleet headquarters. And so James and I have talked about this, and we want to shoot this with the Phase 2 crew. And so he said, well, why don't we put Garth in here? You know, he's rehabilitated at this point in time, and I said, wow, that's cool. Okay. So I went back and I played Garth again.
I just saw that clip tonight, and it was really well done. And
yeah,
the new Kirk actor too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. Brian does a very good job. It's nice that he's not a real Star Trek geek because he doesn't try and do Shatner, which is my big pet peeve. I always say, you know, no James Bond actor ever tried to do Sean Connery. They all did James Bond, and that's what you have to do. So you have to find Kirk in yourself. So anyway, while in 2010, while we were filming Origins, I was at lunch with James talking about working as a producer, and he said, and I told him about my Garth idea, and he said, well, why don't you write a script and we'll produce it? And I said, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. So I started writing a script. I took a screenwriting class with Robert McKee, who's like the godfather of Hollywood screenwriting, you know, coaches, with Doc John, who plays John Kelly, who plays Dr. McCoy in Phase 2, and I'm a pretty good writer to begin with, but I really learned how to write a screenplay, and you know, since then we've knocked out this script for Axanar, which fortunately I showed David Gerald asked to read it last summer. David Gerald's now showrunner with Phase 2, and he comes up to me one day, and I've known him since Origins, so you know we're friendly, and he says, I want to read your script. And I said, okay. I said, just remember, David, before you read this, understand it's not a Star Trek story. It is a war story set in the Star Trek universe. And he goes, oh, I love war stories. I said, okay, go knock yourself out. So he comes to me the next day. I'm sitting in the green room once again. He comes up to me and he goes, I read your script. And if you know Dave, if you're on Facebook, you know he is a promotion. And he wears that proudly. And you know, he's very critical. He's a very critical person. And he has a great heart, but he knows what he likes and knows what he doesn't like, and bad Star Trek doesn't do it for him. And so I'm not, I'm like, oh, okay, what do you think? I'm thinking to myself, oh, he's going to pull the script out of a bag and it's going to be dripping in red ink. And he says, it's good. He says, it's really good. He says, it's almost ready to shoot. And I was like, wow, that's okay. I said, notes, give me notes, and it was great because some of his notes, we started talking about Run Silent, Run Deep, and The Enemy Below, and classic World War II movies. And I was like, wow, he really gets it. He really gets where we're coming from. And for all you war movie enthusiasts, Midway is a huge influence on Axanar. That's right after Patton. Midway is my favorite World War II movie because it shows scope and it shows this massive battle, and so we take some real interesting cues from it. So we've been working on it about a year and a half ago. My friend Christian Gossett, who, if you're a comic book guy, you know from the Red Star. Christian, Christian joined. He's a brilliant visual artist. Christian joined as our director. We've got a 3-time Emmy winner as DP, and just David's our story editor, along with Dave Galanter, who's written 5 Star Trek novels. Who was early on? He was working with me, when I first started writing the script, and Dave was great. And we've slowly been able to add people. So about a little over a year ago, I asked my very first acting coach, Richard Hatch, who you all know is from Battlestar Galactica. I took him out for sushi, which he loves, and I applied him with sake, and I told him about Axanar, and I said, I really want you to be the lead Klingon. And he was like, I'd love to. He said, this sounds awesome. And I was really worried because I didn't know what his take on it was, but he jumped in with both feet. And I'm actually back in acting class with him now. I've been at the Howard Fine Studio for the past 2 years, and he's teaching now about half a mile from where I live, so where he just moved. So I'm back in acting class with him, and it's wonderful. And then I approached J.G. Hertzler. We have a mutual friend, and I said, I got the introduction. I started talking to him. I said, J.G., I've got 3 parts. One's a Klingon, and I don't want you to play a Klingon. One's a captain, and one's an admiral. And I said, right now I've got someone in mind for the admiral, so I'd really like you to be captain. And he read the script, and he said, oh, yeah, I want to be a captain. And he says, and he started telling me how what he thought of starship captains, which was right what I thought. He said, look, they're all milquetoast in Star Trek. They're all, and I said, I agree. I said, you look at the captains that we've seen in Star Trek from Star Trek 3, you had J.T. Esteban and Styles. They're either buffoons or they're cocky or they're Harrymen who's wet behind the ears. Who's the guy who's like Kirk in Starfleet? You can't tell me Kirk's the only guy. So that was, and J.G. was so in tune with that. So he's like, okay, and he goes, I want to do this and this, and he goes, and I want to wear an eye patch. And we'll talk to the director about that. And I said, and if you ask for a parrot, it ain't happening. But he's a great guy. JG is so passionate. He's like Richard, and wonderful and warm, and it's great. And both those guys have had the opportunity to influence their characters in the writing of their characters, which has been great for them. And then I met with Gary Graham because Soval is alive and well 80 years after Enterprise. I should say, so Axanar takes place in the year 2245, which the geeks among us know as the year of the launch of the Enterprise. And it's thus 21 years before the first season of Star Trek, the original series. 80 years after the last episode of Enterprise, the founding of the Federation. And it's about the war, and it's about this war. So we take cues from, if you remember the FASA role-playing games back in the 90s. Yeah. We call it the 4 Years' War, because I love that aspect of FASA. Really helped get me going on Garth, even though he played a small role in that. And you will see the Enterprise. You'll see it in Space Dock, before it's launched. I can tell you that Michael Hogan has agreed to play Robert April. Michael Hogan of Colonel Ty on Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible.
Yes, he has been my dream casting since day one. It's like I started thinking about who I wanted to play, and I said Robert April, and I was like, Michael Hogan, he's perfect.
That's gonna be really cool.
And just Garth has 2 amazing scenes with him. Actually, there's 3 scenes where they interact. There's one in a bar, and there's one at the Peace Conference, because we do see the Peace Conference too. And wow, let me tell you, I'm thrilled, to be able to act with that guy. So that's exciting. And then we haven't gotten a firm yes yet from Tony Todd, but we've talked with him and he is interested. And so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that once he gets out of his funk for his New England Patriots having lost, because he's a huge Patriots fan, which is ironic because I told him, he's like, well, who do you like? And I said, I can't tell you. He said, because you won't like me. He goes, no, come on. I said, I'm a New York Giants fan. So he took solace in the fact that we suck this year. But anyway, we're hoping Tony Todd joins us because he is going to play Admiral Ramirez, the commander-in-chief of Starfleet. And again, our captains, not just Garth or April or JG's character named Sam Travis, there's a female captain, Sonia Alexander, that we're trying to get Kate Vernon to come play, who was, of course, Kate Vernon was Ellen Ty in Battlestar Galactica. But all our captains are badasses because fourth year of the war. All the pussies died. They got killed.
Right. I also noticed on your site for the cast or for the characters that you've got Richard Rabow, who was from the JJ universe.
Yes.
So how does that tie in?
Well, remember, all you geeks, that the JJ Trek 2009 Star Trek is canon for the Prime universe up until the point that Narada shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we know that which is the one thing I'll give JJ here is that Kelvin looks like it belongs in the Prime universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the Kelvin was great, and I'm not crazy about the interior, but the Kelvin looks great, and Rabow, well, he's one of those ass kickers. So if he didn't get killed by Nero, if that never happened, where is he? And in our script, he's one of the squadron commanders that Garth chooses, and he's a very good friend of Garth's. Now, this is all dependent on us being able to get Ferran Tahir to play Richard Rabow.
Oh.
And we've gotten a no from his agent, but we got it the afternoon we sent the email, so I'm blowing off his agent, going to go through his publicist and see if we can somehow, through back channels, get a hold of him, because once he sees the cast and once he sees what we're about to tell you about our Kickstarter video, I think he'll say, "Oh wow, this is impressive. This is, these guys are good." That is, so now that we've got Hogan, that's our dream casting, is to get Ferran Tahir to play Richard Rabow, which would be insane. It would blow people away. Back to Tony Todd real quick. Tony Todd's the Admiral because he intimidates everybody, right? You can see Tony Todd. He's 6'4" and he's probably 250, and he's got that deep voice. And yeah, I'd listen to him. And you have to have someone. You can't have a wimpy, overweight, middle-aged, Admiral. I just that's not the way admirals are. Admirals used to command aircraft carriers, and now they're badasses. They just, they've taken a desk job so they can raise their kids or whatever. So that's why we want Tony Todd.
And he's no stranger to Star Trek. I mean, he played Jake Sisko in the future. He played a Hirogen on Voyager, and he also played a few Klingons. Or he played Kern,
Worf's brother.
Yeah.
In multiple episodes. Yeah. When I met him at Kamikaze, this convention out here in L.A., and he proudly wears his Star Trek on his sleeve. He was like, "Oh yeah, you know him. You know about me. I love Star Trek." I go, "Yeah, I know. Worf's brother. Jake Sisko. I cried. You made me cry, you bastard." Yeah. So he loves it. So that's kind of the lay of the land. And by the way, www.StarTrekAxanar.com.
It's a great site.
Oh, thank you. And we just launched today. We launched our blogs, so now you can go there and we'll start updating our blogs on a regular basis.
I remember
on Facebook, of course.
Yeah, well, I first saw you guys through Facebook, and I think it was when you just put up the website with the flyby. And once I saw that flyby, I was like, okay, I'm going to be watching these guys closely because it looks really good.
Well, thanks to Aaron Harvey, who created the framework for that site and did all that. I mean, shout out to Aaron, because Aaron is just had a heart transplant, actually, and is doing well and all. So he's not working on the site. We have another guy, Brian, who's helped us on the site since. But listen, I'm an old technology guy. Having a great website is absolutely essential, and it's part of your branding and part of your image. So that's important. Thanks. I'm glad you like it, and that means a lot. So what we're working on now is we're pretty sure right now we are going to do a miniature project first before we are going to do a video, and you are the first guys I'm going to talk about it with. And we're actually going to Kickstarter a short. The Kickstarter is going to be like $10,000. We don't need much money. But the Kickstarter is going to be a 20-minute video, and it's called Prelude to Axanar, and it's basically a History Channel special on the Battle of Axanar.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the main characters in character. So you're going to see Ramirez talking about the war, Garth, April. If we get JG says if it fits in, he'll come out and do it. And Karn and Richard Hatch's character, Karn and Saval. We'll see them all talking about the war. And it'll be intercut with, maps and ship shots, and Christian and I we spent a whole afternoon watching History Channel specials on Stalingrad and Midway and and all of it. So and we think that is going to blow people away, because whoever's read the script, JG read the script and he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And we're doing things. We've not only got a script for them to read, but they're getting a backstory on their character. And then they'll have three things. They have the Prelude script, they'll have the Axanar script, and they'll have a backstory. And then we're going to ad lib. We're just going to go into improv with them. After they we get all the takes we need, we're like, okay. And then interviewer, it may be me, it might be my friend, are just going to start interviewing them and asking them questions. And let's see what we get. And that'll give us so much fodder for our Kickstarter when we launch our main Kickstarter. We want to start small, and we figure, hey, if we raise 10, 15 grand and then knock it out of the park with this just amazing video, then when we ask everyone for, when we say, okay, now we need, $250,000, everyone will be much more like, okay, we're in good hands. My money is in good hands with these guys. And I've also gone and I've already, actually, our main Kickstarter is all set and ready to go. It was mostly 90% done. We did all the perks. I basically went to the other successful Kickstarters, Renegades and Star Trek Continues, because Renegades raised $370,000 between their Kickstarter and their Indiegogo, and Star Trek Continues rated 126. And I looked at what they did for perks, and I said, okay, our perks, the Renegades perks were way better than the Star Trek Continues perks. And I looked at the Renegades perks, and I said, well, let's just make sure ours are better. Better. Give more stuff away. And it's point now that we will have levels that I now have a team that's working on a books of the ships of Axanar. It'll be a book, a hardcover book. And it'll be done like if you're a real geek and you remember that old Ships of the Starfleet.
Yep.
Or the Ships of the Line calendars that they do.
Or the Ships of the Line, yeah. The old Ships of the Starfleet was like blueprints of every ship in the history.
Yeah, I had that. Yep.
So we're going to combine those two, and it's going to have all of that. We already have a sample that's insane, and then mixed in with all those color, like the wallpapers that you've seen on our wall site. So it will be a combination, and it will be a hardcover book. If we reach a certain amount, it's going to cost us about 10 grand to get printed to do it right, but it'll be a perk, and everyone will be able to get it, and we're really excited about it. And those are the kind of things we want to do, because we're all geeks. We all love it. It's like, wow, I can get a Ships of the Starfleet, the Ships of Axanar book out of this deal. So we want, really want to do really, really cool things like that.
Yeah, and the visual effects look amazing too. And just what you've posted on the YouTube channel, all those flybys, the ship looks really nice.
Yeah, so the ship was, I kind of knew what I wanted this to look like. Back in high school when I was designing starships, I always had underslung nacelles. I always thought that was a very aggressive look. And so when the Centaur came out in Deep Space Nine, I was like, oh my God, what a stupid kit bash, but I love that ship. It was literally Excelsior nacelles with a Reliant torpedo pod, which are different scales, but I loved it. So I said to Sean Toringo, who designed the USS Titan, I got together with Sean. I said, Sean, okay, here's what I want. I sent him a bunch of photos that I had scalped off the net of different starships. I said, think Centaur with a secondary hull. And we started working together, and he threw designs at me, and I'd send him back with written notes and send him back, and he'd send back, and we came up with a design, and then that I was happy with. And then we sent it to Tobias Richter, who does all the special effects for Star Trek Phase 2, who is a master. And he put the 3D together, and he did all those things. And listen, I don't think I ever talk about Tobias without the word genius in front of him. Because he's amazing. That stuff, right, I get excited about it, look at that stuff and go, God damn. Yeah, every time I go to a website, I'm just mesmerized by that flyby. I'm just wow.
Just put that on loop, and there you go.
Right. Exactly. The shot of it rising up through the nebula. Oh man, it's breathtaking.
Yeah, and so it's actually, you'll find out in the story, it's a gas giant.
Okay.
We actually have a battle in a gas giant. Part of what was challenging about Axanar, I actually finished the first 3 acts in about 6 months, and then it took me a year to write Act 4. And part of the reason it took me a year was because Act 4 is the Battle of Axanar, and I've never been impressed by any starship battle in Star Trek. Now, yes, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is cool, but Deep Space Nine, all those big ship battles, they're like hundreds of ships and they get hit by a phaser and they blow up. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So there had to be strategy and tactics. So you had to have ship tactics, ship on ship, and you had to have squadron versus squadron. You had massive, how do fleets react in space? And so I literally went out. The first place I started was I read the first 4 Honor Harrington novels, if you've ever read that, David Weber's books, which are about space battles. And it's really interesting because they're all about space battles as if their spaceships are 17th century sailing ships, which is kind of interesting. So I did a lot of research. I think the way the Battle of Axanar turns out, and we're still revising Act 4, people will go, wow, there's it, and this is where Midway comes in. You will see subtitles like in Midway. Like in Midway, you saw, the carrier hear you, or or Strawberry 9, the recon PBY. So we will have stuff like that. So this is what's happening over with the 2nd Squadron over here getting their ass kicked, and this is what's and here's the Klingon reserves or whatever. There'll be little subtitles. The people who've read the script are like, wow, I get it. It really gives you this impression that there's this massive battle going on and everyone has a job to do, and we do, and that's why you'll see on our ships, even our ships, we have a destroyer, a cruiser, a heavy cruiser, and a carrier, because that's kind of like they all have jobs, right? So we want to do it. So anyway, there's a battle early in Axanar where basically the Ares, Garth ship, meets up with the first D7 that was ever produced. And there's this arms race between the Federation and the Klingons, and the D7 is the dreadnought, the Klingon dreadnought, and the Federation's the Constitution. And which side is going to get their dreadnought into the war first, because that'll tip the balance of the war. So you'll see Garth and the Ares in action in Act 1, kicking some ass, and then all of a sudden in Act 2, there's a Klingon D7, and they're like, wow, okay, I can't say it. This might, some kid may be watching it, but you get the, WTF, and so all the usual tricks don't work. And Garth, being one of the things we know about Garth, is he explored more planets than any other starship captain. And so Garth starts looking for an advantage, and one of the things, and there's a gas giant, and he's like, take us in. Let's figure this, let's beat him in here. So that scene that you mentioned is meant to be when they're, getting out of the gas giant.
I had a question, kind of nerdy, but we're all nerds here.
Yeah, I know. We're talking about Star Trek. About being nerdy.
So, are we going to see any of the actual species? Because we saw them in Enterprise, Fight or Flight. We actually saw Axanar, and this is the battle of Axanar. So how is that going to tie in?
Well, one of the things that in the FASA stories, the Axanarians were, a pre-industrial race, and what's relevant. So we don't see the Axanarians. We may see them. Let's see. We may see them at the peace conference. Okay. That's a lot of makeup, and I'll tell you in a second. But they're not central to the story. The story, Axanar, is simply a place a battle takes place. Okay. You touch on a more interesting question: is who's in this fight, right? In the original series, there are no integrated crews. The Enterprise, it's all human except for Spock, and he's half human. The Vulcans have their own ship, the Intrepid, which gets destroyed in Immunity Syndrome. Right. We never see any aliens in the original series. Now, we all know that's because of budget and makeup, but we know there are Andorians. So in Axanar, one of the squadron commanders is Andorian, and his ship is all Andorian, because we posit that that's the way the Federation is, 80 years after the Federation. Now, and the beauty of this is, you want to get nerdy, the beauty of this is, we know from the original series of Star Trek that Kirk, early on, says their command comes from USPA, the United Earth Space Probe Agency. What? which they alternately call Space Command or Starfleet Command later on. They call it Starfleet Command. And we also know that in Enterprise, UASPA is the authorizing agency for Starfleet Command. You see, Starfleet Command, UASPA. So we're simply positing that in 80 years after the Federation, there still hasn't been enough trust built up that they're integrated crews. Everyone manages their own ships. Now, it's all part of the Federation. Everyone's got a USS whatever, but they're manning their own ships. UASPA is the authorizing authority for all the Terrans ships. And then there's an Andorians, and then the Vulcans, and hey, they're peace lovers, so they're not even fighting in this war, which is a major plot point. So we take those things, so I take your nerdy and raise your
Well, I'm a huge fan of Andorians, and I've always have been. So to say that you're going to have a ship full of Andorians and an Andorian captain, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be cool.
Is it a Federation or a Starfleet human Terran design, or is it an Andorian ship with a Federation prefix on it?
No, it is Starfleet design.
Okay.
Because one of the things which you'll learn in Prelude to Axanar, we talk about the ships and the technology and what is the advantage of the Federation and how did the Federation, how were they able to so quickly advance their designs? And it's because you've got multiple races, and the Andorians give you the weapon systems, and the Tellarites give you the shields, and the Vulcans give you propulsion, and everyone says, oh, we do that, but we do it this way, and oh, wow, that's better. And this is all covered in Prelude to Axanar. We talk about how the Klingons, thought they could roll over the Federation, and there's a lot of parallels with World War II, right? The Japanese think they're going to roll over the United States. Well, why did the United States? How did we come back so fast? We bought time, and we were the United States, and we just built a lot of stuff, and we built it really well and really fast. And that's kind of the Federation, So early on, they're getting their asses kicked, and then they start to catch up technologically and release new, and it's so anyway. So we cover all that, and I love talking about this stuff because this is all the nerdy stuff we all love, and. It's on Facebook. Someone will always try and catch. Well, wait, why are you using Why are you using the Enterprise patch on your chest? And I say, well, whoa. There's two. There's a reason because in court martial they all had the Starship. That was Starfleet.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the second season that Bill Tice got a wild hair in him and put a different patch on for the crew of the is it the Yorktown in Omega Glory, and then another one, and then a different patch for the Doomsday Machine for the Constellation. So I say, there's and I talked to Michael Kuda about this. I said, Mike, what's your take? And Michael's like, internal conflict, you can't reconcile it. It's So I said, well, we will. We're going to say that there's both a ship patch, because that's very military, which you've seen if you've been to our Facebook page, and we're all wearing the Starfleet chevron, because we know that is Starfleet. We know it in Enterprise they use the chevron for Starfleet. So, but having a rationale, and I mean, you should have seen the back and forth. I talked to a recruiter, my editor is like, well, this, and I'm like, okay, I'm a lawyer by training, so if I can make a case that I can take into it and say, look, Judge, then I feel good. And so when the Facebook geeks, and I use that term as a term of affection, of course, because I'm a geek myself, they say, oh, but I'm like linking over to if you've seen our website, we have a geek FAQ, because I was so tired of answering these questions over. Click, here's the link, go read. Click here's. Oh, you want to know why we don't have a deflect? Our deflector dish looks that way. Click, go read the link, and because we've thought about all of this, because I've been working on this for 3 years, I've had time.
Yeah, I read the Geek FAQ before we started talking, and yeah, I think any hardcore Trekkies should read it because I think it deals with these issues brilliantly, and I like the world that you guys are setting up.
Well, Rob Burnett, who you know from Free Enterprise, and who also is the producer of all the Star Trek Enterprise and TOS and TNG Blu-rays, is become a very good friend. His office is about 4 blocks from my house, so we go to sushi all the time together. And so he read the script, and he was like, he goes, "This is Star Trek." He said, "This is great," and he's very critical of fan films in general, but he loved it, and So basically, he wants to edit it. So I said, okay, you can edit it. Talk to my post guy. I go, Mark, you've got so many jobs. Let Rob edit it. And he was like, oh, Rob Burnett, yeah, he can edit it. And Rob is the biggest Star Trek geek in the. Yes. Let me tell you, we have all built the Star Trek AMT models when we were kids.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We all built them. Did you build all 12 in the fleet?
No.
Well,
No.
Rob Burnett did. So I bow down to the superior geek. He's got just great stories about this. So it's fun having him to bounce stuff off of because he knows this stuff as well as anyone. And so we go through it, and that's kind of the internal test. When I come up with something, I say, okay, Rob, here's my pitch, and I pitch him. And he comes back at me, and he'll tell you what he likes and he doesn't like. And we were talking about starship battles, and the Great Space Lake, right? Everything has to happen on the Space Lake.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, screw the Space Lake. This is three-dimensional. It's like ironic. They talk about three-dimensional thinking in Wrath of Khan, but everything's two-dimensional ultimately. We really want three-dimensional. So when you see Garth's ship staging at Axanar, you see him underneath the planet. Yeah, the planets above, you don't see them like hovering over the equator. Why? It's space. And then you see ships going vertical and down, and you see things you haven't seen before, because we really want this to be the Star Trek you've never seen before, shown in a way that you've never seen Star Trek before. Just like JJ's Trek was. I mean, with all the problems, I saw Star Trek 2009 4 times in the movie theater.
Yeah.
That's the most I've ever seen any movie in the movie theater before. I saw Star Wars 3 times in the movie theater. That's how old I am. But I only saw Into Darkness once. And the reason is because all those gimmies I gave JJ the first time around, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you this ridiculous monster chase on the ice planet. I'm going to give you that he just lands where Spock happens to be. And Scotty just happened. I'm going to give you all that stuff. Okay. I'm going to forgive you that obnoxious brewery for an engine room interior, and why the hell you have water pipes running around. In the first movie, I was so happy to have Star Trek back. I'm so happy that it was renewed and invigorated. I gave him all that stuff. I said, I'm not going to bitch about that. Great score by Michael Giacchino. I loved it.
Yep.
In Into Darkness, I didn't give him any of that. I said, sorry, you got a pass the last time. You don't get a pass again. And this, and I'm not going to go into Darkness, but Robert. But the point being was, it was so good to see Star Trek with a different sensibility. Right after Nemesis, I was going around saying, I want Michael Bay doing Star Trek. I want someone who's got a totally different way that they look at movie making. All you want to say about Michael Bay and Transformers, you look at Pearl Harbor or you look at Armageddon, and those movies really, they are shot differently. They're shot like a music video. Go ahead, say that. I don't care. They're shot differently, a different sensibility, a different energy, he's got a different take. He's trying to accomplish something different. Whereas opposed to Star Trek Nemesis, which tries to do what the other Star Trek films do, and I love Nemesis, but get rid of B4 and it'd be a really good movie. But we needed a fresh take on Star Trek. And that's what Axanar is. Axanar is saying, we're going to go to a time period you haven't seen before. We're going to shoot it in a way you haven't seen Star Trek shot before, with sets you haven't seen before, with characters you're familiar with, but they're not Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And Rob Burnett, the 2 great things Rob Burnett said, one was, this is Star Trek, and the other great thing is, he said, this reads like canon. He said, you read this? This makes total sense. This should be this is 20 years before Star Trek. Because we're not trying to reinvent something, and we're not trying to play Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and we're trying to do something different. And again, not denigrating what Phase 2 or Star Trek Continues does. I mean, God bless we all grew up wanting to be Captain Kirk. I grew up wanting to be Captain Garth. So we all get to play our heroes. And by the way, just a pitch for Star Trek Phase 2 and Katoomba. If you haven't seen Katoomba, go watch it. It's really, really, really good. And so that's what we're trying. We want a Blu-ray of Star Trek Axanar that someone in the studio system is going to put on someone's desk and go, you have got to fracking watch this. This is amazing. You're not going to believe. And then someone's going to say, find these guys' phone number and call them up. That's what we want out of this, because we can't make any money off of it. So let's have fun and get jobs out of it.
That would be amazing. That's one of my things with the whole JJ universe. Like, why do we need to create another universe? Let's just play in the Prime universe, because there's so much in the Prime universe that's ripe for picking. You can go into the future. You can find these little time periods in between the original series and Enterprise, or even between the original series and Next Generation, where there's that whole Cardassian war thing. Like, what happened there? So there's just all these time periods that are just ripe in the Prime universe, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have a problem reinventing Star Trek. I don't. The premise of what JJ did, I appreciate that the fan service to including old Spock, alternate timeline. I really appreciate all that, and it was one of the reasons I was so forgiving in the first Star Trek. I'm like, okay, look, these guys are making an effort, and there's so much for a Star Trek fan to jump into it. But, look, it's a big universe, and we all get to play in it. My take is, with Hulu and Amazon and Netflix, CBS is going to have a strategy. What do we do there? Look at what Marvel did. Marvel went and put their Hell's Kitchen characters on Netflix. You're going to see Daredevil and Iron Fist and Luke Cage, on Netflix, leading up to a Defenders movie. Like, holy crap! What they're taking their tertiary characters, the ones no one gives a damn about, and they're putting them on Netflix. And you know what? As long as it's not crap like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., people are going to watch that stuff. And I think it will be, because I think hopefully ABC has learned their lesson to leave Marvel alone when it comes to their characters. Let them do what they want. But anyway, there's this whole new field. I can easily see a day, 5 years from now, where we're watching 4 different Star Trek series, right? Yeah. You're watching one on network TV, you're watching one on Amazon, one on Hulu, one on Netflix, or maybe 3 of them are on who knows, what have you. But it won't be Enterprise Season 5, because let me just tell you, CBS is never going back to the previous wells. They've told me flat out that is never happening. So that means, to your point, we get to explore everything. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, with all of the the JJ movies, and it's a renewed interest in Star Trek. I mean, it's made so much money. It's getting a new generation of fans, but we're waiting 3 years between movies, so there has to be something to fill the gap. And we've talked about on our show multiple times that Star Trek needs a series. Yep. We need to go back to the series format, because that's what Star Trek is meant to be. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think a lot of people will even argue that Star Trek never should have been movies, that it doesn't lend itself to movies, which, whatever. I think your first point about a whole new generation of Star Trek fans has come in. I mean, the first Las Vegas Star Trek convention after JJ Trek came out increased in attendance 25%. Wow. Right. Now, don't tell me that's bad. You can hate on JJ all you want, but it's done good things for the Star Trek franchise. Yeah. That's all good. And we will get it back on TV. CBS isn't going to sit on their hands. I think they're waiting basically till JJ's contract is over. Yeah. And then once Bad Robot moves on, they're going to, they're interviewing everyone now. Who's going to make the Star Trek, for TV? Is it Orsi and Kurtzman? Is it Bryan Singer's group? Is it J. Michael Straczynski? Who's got the chops to do it? We will see it back on TV. Oh, I look forward to that day, and maybe we'll see your show as one of those. Well, listen, hopefully. I have to be honest. There's a lot of nonsense on the internet about different productions, like, oh, we're making a pilot and we're going to pitch it to CBS. No, you're not. No, you're not making a pilot. You're making a fan film. Saying it's a pilot is, it's a pipe dream. It's, listen, I think I'm making the best independent Star Trek that's ever been put on film. I'll go to the bank on that. All due respect to Renegades, which I love the people doing it. That's why I've scalped so much of their talent, because they got great people working on it. But it's not a pilot for anything. CBS isn't interested in seeing that. And they're not interested in, and they're not going to be interested in Axanar. Rob Burnett and I, our hope is that they see what we do and they say, those guys know Star Trek and they're really talented, and let's talk to them. but they're not gonna get Axanar. Axanar's not gonna, we are realistic about our expectations, but we're also realistic about what we communicate to the public, because I think there's a lot of, I've read recently, one production's like, oh, we're a TV show. No, you're not. You're not getting on TV. And don't tell people that, because it's deceptive. I think we need to be honest about our intent and what we know our product is going to be. And so if we can make the best independent Star Trek ever that blows people away, we did our job.
I think this will be it.
I hope so.
So was it fun? I don't know how influential you were of the designs of like the technology that you're going to have on Axanar, like the tricorder that I saw. That was pretty awesome. Was it fun creating this old new technology?
Yeah, it's a blast, let me tell you, because again, we have free license to do what we want. But we have some guidelines, and that's okay, we're 20 years before TOS, so you have to come up with a design philosophy first. And Christian, the director, and I have talked about this for a year now, and and we run into the problem is that Star Trek is a 50-year-old vision of the future. All right, The Cage, I would argue, is a 60-year-old vision, because it's basically bad 50s sci-fi. So you can't get trapped in that. You can't just be so, well, it's got to be, it's X number of 8 years before The Cage, or what? I think that's right. Cage is 13 years before the Menagerie. So we're 8 years before The Cage. If you get stuck in that, you wind up with shooting, like slingshots or something. I mean, it's just right, because look at that Cage laser. Darren Doctorman, I don't know if you all know Darren Doctorman, one of the top concept artists in Hollywood, huge Star Trek fan. He just directed the last episode of Star Trek Phase 2. He loves The Cage. He loves that design. And he's our production designer. And he and I go at it all the time. I'm not doing bad 50 sci-fi. I know you love it, but I don't. But fortunately, we're all on the same page, is that we need to look earlier than TOS, but not primitive. It's a very fine line you walk. And fortunately, we've got this great concept artist, Eric Henry, who just found me on Facebook and starts sending me stuff. One day I was like, hey, you sent me some stuff a couple months ago. Send me some more stuff. And he starts sending me stuff, and it's brilliant. And it's the tricorders, like, so we start giving him direction. He's a young guy. He's like 21. He's been over in Japan for the last 6 months. We give him direction. I say, show me a hallway. And he shows me some hallways. And I'm like, wow, damn. It's just it gets our mind. And we go, yeah, well, this and this. And people give us feedback. So Eric has been an absolute godsend, and he gets it. And so Christian and Darren and Eric and I are on a conference on Facebook, and we just constantly give him feedback, and he's producing more stuff, and then we give him more feedback. And so the tricorder, we're really liking what he's doing with the tricorder. I'm glad you like that. We're not set on a phaser design yet. We're really struggling with that. I kind of want to use a Kelvin phaser from 2009 Star Trek. I actually own one of the screen-used pieces.
Awesome.
I love it so much. But it also, that is 2233, so that's 12 years earlier. So there a phaser would look a little different. We want it to be a little more assault phasery, a little more bulked up, a little, So we're working on that. But yes, it is fun. It's fun designing our own Star Trek universe that lives within. And when people see it, it's people are going to get, totally geeked about it, because it is a great. It's a great take on what we're familiar with without being repetitive.
I know I'm geeking out about it already, so.
I geek out about it every day. It's fun to work with. I literally have basically for the past 6 months done nothing but Axanar. I'm an entrepreneur. I have I started this company ProtWorks, which really is kind of in limbo now because we're not doing auctions anymore. So I've had the time, and I'm while I work on my next project that I'm creating, it's Axanar's filling my day. So it's fun to come on and see the new sketches and every day, and post stuff on Facebook and work on this, and contact agents and bully actors into working for us.
I can't wait for this to be released. You said next month you're going to start filming?
So
right?
we will start filming Prelude to Axanar here next month.
Okay.
It's only going to be a 2-day shoot, probably a few weeks then to edit it, and then we'll get it out. And it will we will cut a trailer from that for our Kickstarter, for the main Kickstarter.
Okay.
And we will, and on the main Kickstarter page, you'll also be able to watch the 20-minute video, the full Prelude to Axanar video. And then we will have so much stuff that we will be cutting little snippets, little shorts, and that every couple days we'll be putting something new on the Kickstarter page. Please tell all your friends. And
will do.
The first Kickstarter, we're not even going to have the really high levels. It's going to be, we want people to give us $5, $10, $20. That's it. We don't want, because we want, it's like, save your money for the big one. But we will, but I'm already like developing we want, one of the things we'll give away is you'll get a script that'll be an illustrated script. It'll be a PDF. I'm not going to print it out, but maybe for $5, you're going to get the script, and it's going to have photos of the cast and everything in it, and something that'll be cool. I like making those perks really fun and interesting so that you'll want, and it's really insidious. In the main Kickstarter, I looked at what everyone else was doing. We have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 50, I think you go from 35 to 50. And each one, we give you such cool stuff, it's going to be real hard for you. You're like, well, if I just give you $5 more, I'll get this too, and that's so cool. Oh, but if I give you $20, like, oh God, that's so cool. We're totally, we're totally manipulating you that way in the best way possible.
Well, you heard it here first, Star Trek fans. Start saving up now.
Tax time's coming around. We'll have that money.
Yeah.
Why do you think we're launching our?
Exactly. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, don't get that refund too early.
Right. Exactly.
Sign the check right over to you.
Yeah, just say H&R Block. It's Axanar Productions.
So, besides the Kickstarter, are there any other ways that people can help out, or is that the main goal right now?
No, listen. Anyone with any talent. And even if you have no talent, I mean, we have a group called the Axanar Marines, and we haven't widely publicized it yet, but we've just started and we're trying to put it in place. And it's basically people who want to help promote Axanar. And so you just look on our Facebook page. We'll be talking about that, and you can join that. And it's just a group where we, everyone goes and reposts our posts, and once we start doing conventions, we're going to need people to man the conventions. So Axanar Marines is one of them. That's just you're a fan and you want to help promote, and that's it. It doesn't cost you anything. If you don't do anything, we're not going to whip you or send you down to the gallery. That's one. Certain people are like, people get contacting me. I write. Oh, well, maybe you want to write some blog articles for us, or I draw. I'm an artist. Great. Well, how about helping us design some movie posters? For our Kickstarter, we want to have like 5 different movie posters, and you get to choose one. Oh, I want that movie poster. So there are things like that we're doing. Listen, everyone has a talent, even if it's just sharing our content. It's amazing that people have contacted me. I mean, our composer, Alex Bornstein, works in Hollywood. His first 2 bosses were Bear McCreary and Hans Zimmer. Well,
wow.
That's why our music is so amazing. It's because this guy is brilliant. And he saw the Trek movie article a year and a half ago, and he contacted me and he said, hey, I want to write music for you. And I was like, yeah, okay. Write me a couple themes and let me hear what you have to say. I was nice about it. I'm joking. And we met, and he sat down with his Apple computer, and I put in the headphones, and he played it for me, and I was like, holy crap, this guy is good. These are amazing. I mean, it is movie quality music. It is stunning. I mean, you heard a little bit on the piece we posted on Facebook today. It's just the one theme he did for this one scene that I'm not going to tell you about that happens at the end of the movie. It's a really important scene, and everyone loves the scene. And I take a lot of pride in it because it just was inspiration one day, and I said, oh my God, this is how Garth reacts. And I wrote this scene, and he wrote this music for it that is literally, and I'm a soundtrack collector. I've been collecting movie soundtracks for longer than some of you guys are alive, probably. And this is one of my 5 favorite tracks of any movie soundtrack in history. It is unbelievable. it's the kind of music that will. I mean, there are people who are going to be misting up at this scene because it's so powerful, and it's one of those things that you go through all these emotions because I've literally taken the script out. I've been reading the script while his music's playing, and it just totally puts me in the space that I need, the headspace I need to be in to access the right emotion. It's amazing. So, but we got that because he sent me an email and said, I want to work for you. So, everyone can help out. I mean, this is a fan project. Please, if you're watching this and you say, I want to be part of Axanar, hey, great, send us a message, and at the very least, join the Marines and start sharing our stuff. And then when we start doing, later this year, we'll start doing conventions. Mm-hmm. Whatever, we'll be doing conventions all over the country. Come and help us out, man our booth. Get an Axanar T-shirt, and the T-shirts are great. My best friend, she was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "I don't want anything for Christmas." I said, "You are broke. Don't spend a dime on me. Spend it on the boys." I said, and then I said, "But you know what you can make?" Because she makes custom T-shirts. I said, "Make me an Axanar T-shirt." And she did, and she made me one with the patch on the back and the spearhead on the front, and I love it. And everyone's like, "Where do I get one?" Patience. We're releasing those. So listen, I want everyone to help out, and at the conventions, come talk to us. And if you can man the booth, great. We'll, hopefully we'll start doing conventions. Starting with Dragon Con, which is one of my big conventions. Starting with Vegas, I'm sorry, and then Dragon Con. Those two. So we need people all over the country, and we'd love to have everyone's help.
Awesome. So where can people find the Axanar on the web?
So Star Trek Axanar, AXANAR.com is our website. And on Facebook, just search Star Trek Axanar, and you'll find us. Please like us. Please share our page. Share our content. We're approaching 14,000 likes. Which is nothing when you think that Phase 2 has over 100,000 now. Mm-hmm. So we know. But listen, we actually have more likes than Renegades did when they raised their first $250,000. So we're feeling pretty good. So check out those two things. We're Star Trek Axanar on YouTube, and soon you'll be able to just follow us on Facebook. You'll find out when the Kickstarter launches. And if you have good ideas, things you want to see, I mean, people like, I want a patch. That's in the Kickstarter. I want a tunic. You'll be able to get a tunic. Our tunics rock, and you'll be able to get one in the Kickstarter program. Listen, I'm a geek. I want this stuff. It's like, what do I want? I want a T-shirt. I want a patch. I want a uniform. I want a phaser. Right? I want a book. We're gonna have we're trying. If we raise enough money, we are even talking about doing a comic book.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Christian would do all the layouts for it. I mean, we've already talked to IDW about it, and although they don't want to release it, just because TOS doesn't typically sell well for them if it's not Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Yeah. But if it was all paid for, they would distribute it. Yeah. So there are all these things where, listen, it's so funny. People don't get that. I'm looking right now at this Google Hangout, and I see the pictures of three of you. Like, hey, it's like this is me and my buddies talking about Star Trek. We are all in it. The difference is I just happen to love Garth a little more than you guys, and I went out and fan film about it. Right? You guys started a podcast. I didn't start a podcast. We all have our loves in Star Trek, and the beauty of it is we all get together and hang out, and that's what Star Trek is about. Mm-hmm. It's about fraternity. Mm-hmm. It's about sharing these stories of the human condition together. And I hope. Do you guys all go to the Vegas Con?
I haven't been.
I haven't either.
Oh my God! What is up with you guys?
Well, I'll go.
The three of us are poor.
Well, share a room and drive cross country, and I will buy you guys dinner.
We'll get a box.
Yeah,
all right. We'll get out there.
We'll try to make it happen.
Come out. It's so much fun. It's 5 days of Star Trek geekness. It's awesome. And we'll have a booth there. Yeah, I'm actually trying to work with some of the other Star Trek projects, Secret Voyage, Phase 2, to have one big booth there this year.
Oh, awesome!
So yeah.
Cool.
Would you be coming out to any of the conventions? Like there's one in Boston coming in, all that.
BosCon? Is that it?
Yeah. There's one. Yeah.
Yeah, Phase 2 is, I'm not going to be there because we don't have anything right now. It's a little early for us to be there. But Phase 2 is going to be there, and I know they're part of the programming. There's a Friday night and a Saturday night Phase 2 event, and I don't know who from Phase 2 is going to be there. But, so, I mean, that's the kind of thing we'll be doing next year because my guess is Axanar is going to be released, winter. November, December is going to be when we get Axanar out. I mean, we've been delaying it, and every delay is a good delay for us. Yeah, this weekend I'm like, okay, the one thing that was unsettled about Axanar was our makeup. It was like, we need to do Klingon makeup, and that's going to be expensive. And so I said, I'm going to go to IMATS, which was this past weekend. IMATS, the International Makeup Trade Show. Makeup Artist Trade Show, yeah. And I said, I'm just going to go there because one of the guys from Star Trek was going to be there, and I figure I'll meet some more people. So I go there. I'm watching this one guy in the afternoon make up someone. I turn around, and I swear I turn, and standing on my shoulder, a foot away from me is Michael Westmore.
Wow.
I'm like, thank you, God. And being from New York, I'll talk to anybody. I just say, hey, Michael, my name is Alec Peters. I have a production called Star Trek Axanar, and I pitch him for like 60 seconds. I give him the elevator pitch. And he's like, wow, that's really cool. And I tell, Brad Look is working with me, and who's one of his friends. And he says, and I start talking to him about what about this and that. And he says, everything got sold off, and it's all in Germany with Martin Netter. And and he says, but these guys over here, Makeup Effects Lab, there's the guys I gave all my stuff to, and they're great. And Michael introduced me to a couple people, and nicest guy in the world. And that was right. And so tomorrow we're going to Makeup Effects Lab, Christian and I, to meet them. I've already talked to two of their guys. One guy's doing Gary's Vulcan ears. Another's going to do the Klingon headpiece. That's why I live in L.A.
That's awesome.
So your Klingons will have ridges?
They will.
Okay.
We're not sure what they look like yet. We are taking in all the sources. So we're looking at. So we're looking at everything. We love the motion picture. Especially love Star Trek 6 because they were subtle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not a fan of the Next Generation makeups. We think they're too heavy, too much. So if you think somewhere between TMP and Star Trek 6, those kind of Klingon makeups. If you go back and watch Star Trek 6, you really realize, wow, they really were subtle, those ridges.
Yeah.
I mean, Christopher Plummer had almost nothing, but still, you see there's a different take. So that's what we want. We don't want to go with a TOS look just because that was, they did that because they didn't have a makeup budget, and it's basically Klingons in blackface, really.
Yeah.
Right. So we want something interesting, and that's what we're going for. And and the Andorians, while the Andorians I don't think are going to have forehead ridges, we'll see on our makeup budget. Give more money to Kickstarter. I definitely want the Andorians to have antennas that move.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I think that's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. I can't wait. Listen, I'm like you. I can't wait for us to shoot the Andorian captain with an Andorian crew at a Federation bridge. It's like, yes, how cool is that?
That's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see it.
No Tellarites. We're probably not doing that.
No Tellarites.
No Tellarites. Okay.
Sorry, apologies to the pig face, but
Yeah. Now here's a question as far as the Klingons go. Were you a fan of what was in Into Darkness?
That's it's interesting. Not crazy, the whole bling-on thing.
Yeah, the whole.
But if you look at, if you go to Neville Page's website, who's the makeup concept artist, and you look at his stuff, there's some really interesting stuff there. There's one that's very good because it's very subtle, and we're using that as an influence as well. As I lay out all the photos of the things we like, that one on Neville Page's website is one of the ones that we're using. So,
I think if they had stuck with the bling, they would have been better off. I think they were more subtle.
Yeah, they were. I didn't have a problem with the makeup. I had a problem with the bling.
Yeah.
But it's all fun. It's just fun doing this stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I wish I could create my own universe, but I don't have the funds to do so, which is why I'm excited for this production, because it's kind of like, oh man, if I had the money, this is what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate you guys saying that, and
Well, we should look, I think we're already part of the Marines.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Been inducted.
All right. Well, I know we're definitely all excited. I know once the Kickstarters happen, it's like, here's my money, just take it, you know?
Have you seen this collection of Power Rangers?
We don't get it.
I mean, that's you go all in there.
Yeah, I'll go all in with this project.
All right, I love hearing that. Yeah. Well, listen, if you look at my place, you know, probably here. Let me see if I can just give you a little. Here's a cabinet full of Star Trek props.
Oh man.
That's kind of my. Those are my toys there. That's yeah. So that's where my money always goes when it's like, oh, I've got a little extra money. So yeah, so I've got some cool stuff here. Of course, none of it we're using the show, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into all of this.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm jealous. So
This has been great. Thank you for coming on our show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
And we look forward to seeing more of your stuff in the future.
Great, and thank you for having me on, and hopefully you'll have me back once we get going.
Definitely.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Starfleet Escape Podcast on the Four-Eyed Radio Network, where you can catch a new episode every other Monday. You can find us on the web at sfescapepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at sfescapepod. Like us on Facebook.com/sfescapepod. And add us to your circle on Google Plus by going to google.sfescapepod.com.
This has been a proud production of the Four-Eyed Radio Network. Check out more shows on foureyedradio.com. Beam me up, Scotty.